It's not every day that we see a brand new car manufacturer enter the US, but that's exactly what Lucid did when the company launched their very first production vehicle in America nearly 2 years ago, the Lucid Air. Now, what the Air is supposed to be is a direct rival to the Tesla Model S, the pioneering electric sedan that really started a trend of long-range premium electric vehicles over a decade ago. In fact, the chief designer of the Lucid Air used to be the chief engineer for the Tesla Model S. Now, being a new brand in the US is always an uphill battle. However, Lucid starts off with a great structure here. This is an all-electric vehicle with up to a 118 kilowatt-hour battery pack and the longest range that you can currently buy in the US or even around the world, with a range estimate of up to 516 miles. Now, finally this week, we have gotten our hands on the 2023 Lucid Air in this Grand Touring trim with the 21-inch wheels. It has over 800 horsepower going to all four wheels, and this model here with its 21-inch wheels delivers up to 469 miles on a full charge. So this week, as you can see, we're gonna drive the Lucid Air for a few days. We're gonna put it through our usual battery of tests. I'm gonna do an extensive range test on it because I wanna see if this car can truly beat that 400-mile range mark in real-world testing. And in this video, we're gonna find out, has Lucid truly delivered a luxury electric sedan that can beat Tesla at their own game? Stay tuned to find out. So typically when I start off these walk-arounds, I start by showing you guys what's underneath the hood. Now, this is where the Lucid gets very interesting because the frunk in this vehicle is the largest frunk that you're gonna find in the EV industry. In fact, it is about twice as large as most competing vehicles. So let's go ahead and answer that million-dollar question and show you, what does the frunk on the Lucid Air look like? Now, as you guys saw, it is accessed via a button that I pushed on the dash, which I'll show you in the interior portion, or you can also do it from your smartphone, which I don't have access to right now because this is a press vehicle. If you're an owner, you would have access to that. But the frunk, as you guys saw, electronically opens, and this is the largest frunk that I've seen in the industry for an EV. In fact, an EV sedan, that's what I'm talking about, because there are EV trucks that have larger frunks. But you can see Lucid says this frunk measures 10 cubic feet, which is, again, huge for a sedan. It's about twice the size of most other EVs that actually have a frunk. And the other cool thing is when I lift this up right here, it actually goes even deeper. You can see that is one of the deepest storage wells that I've seen for a luxury or for an electric sedan. It's really shocking to me how Lucid is able to do that with the frunk of this vehicle. The frunk itself is nicely finished off with carpet. You can see it's also really closed off. It's a really great storage area, and that's not even including the back trunk as well, which I'll show you guys later on. But because we're underneath here, let's talk about the powertrain specs. Lucid is launching this car in several different trims, starting at the base Pure to the Touring, to the Grand Touring Performance, and the Sapphire. The battery pack ranges from around 88 kilowatt hours up to 118 kilowatt hours. This model here has a 112 kilowatt hour lithium ion battery pack. It has a unique battery that is a Lucid design that they also work with LG Chem, I believe. And it's also designed to perform even better in cold weather conditions and deliver repeatable range over the years of multiple uses and charges. Now, horsepower for this model is rated at 819 horsepower and 885 foot-pounds of torque. That torque figure, of course, is what drives an EV forward with a ton of propulsion. And keep in mind, if you guys want even more power, the Grand Touring Performance delivers 230 more horsepower for a total of 1,050 horsepower. And then if you guys even want more power, the Sapphire version, which will be available later this year, has triple electric motors delivering over 1,200 horsepower. But again, 819 is still nothing to sneeze at. It has a 1-speed reduction gear transmission and dual motor all-wheel drive to deliver 0 to 60 in around 3 seconds. That's what Lucid says. It has a top speed of around 177 miles an hour, and this vehicle runs on the 800-volt architecture, so it's able to accept up to 300 kilowatts on a DC fast charger. Lucid says you could basically go and add 200 miles of range in just 12 minutes. This car is very heavy because it's an electric vehicle. It weighs in at just over 5,200 pounds. But let's go ahead and close up the hood here, which to close it, you literally just close it and it'll soft close on its own. But this particular one that I'm showing you is the Grand Touring trim. Now, the Grand Touring trim is kind of like the luxury-oriented trim, although you can get a performance grade. It does include, of course, some extra nice touches on the interior, which I'll talk about in just a moment. But you can see the front end of this car is very futuristic. Lucid prides themselves on building or what they claim is the most aerodynamic sedan in the world. It has a 0.197 drag coefficient, which is a little bit slipperier versus the Tesla Model S and the Mercedes-Benz EQS. Lucid claims that this is slipperier than the EQS because of the front end. It definitely has styling that shows that aerodynamics was a priority. You can see all of the Airs have this unique front fascia with these 5 individual LEDs, or it's actually 6, with an LED daytime running light, LED turn signals. There's also an LED running light or accent light that kind of goes through, and the Lucid also lights up at night, which makes it really pretty looking. The turn signal is down there with with what looks like an actual functional vent. There's some functional vents down here, and then you'll find the radar sensors for the Dream Drive that you can get on this vehicle as standard equipment. Surprisingly, there are some functional vents over here which allow air, I believe, to pass through and again create the aerodynamics that this car needs to get that 500 plus miles of range. But overall, I wasn't sure about this vehicle's design when I first saw it out in pictures and whatnot, but seeing it in person here in the real world in this gray color with the two-tone roof, it's definitely unique and polarizing. I think it's much better looking versus the Mercedes-Benz EQS. And is it better looking than the Tesla Model S? That's, again, styling is always subjective, but in this particular configuration, I do appreciate the looks of this car. Now, looking at the wheels, you can see Lucid offers a choice of a 19, a 20, and a 21-inch wheel. My tester has the 21-inch Aeroblade wheels, which are still a little bit more aerodynamic. These do reduce the range from 516 to 469. These are a Pirelli P0 summer tire, which, as you can see, it's wrapped in a pretty fat wheel, a 245/35 R21. It's an even fatter 265 in the rear. So again, rear drive biased all-wheel drive system, as you guys know, with an electric vehicle. Now, here is where the charge port door is on this car. You can see just touch the bottom there, and that will electrically fold down. It comes standard, of course, with the J1772 plug and the DC fast charging plug. Remember, this car can accept up to 300 kilowatts on a fast charger, so you can basically go from like 10 to 90%, probably in under 30 minutes. Lucid doesn't quote that, but they do say 200 miles of range in just 12 minutes, which is pretty impressive. Now, looking at the rest of the profile, you can see silver accented side mirror here with integrated turn signals. There are cameras galore. There are like 14 different cameras around this car, and these mirrors also electrically fold in. The door handles pop out, as you guys saw, and then you can also get the option to paint this roof. This is like the silver painted roof, which is standard. They also offer a stealth package. The panoramic glass roof is also standard as well. It doesn't actually open, and there's no shade, which I'll show you guys when we get into the vehicle later on. Backing away, let me show you the profile, because this vehicle is a relatively big sedan at around 195.9 inches long, just 196 inches long, basically. It's got a wheelbase of 116.5. So this is about the same size as the Tesla Model S, but compared to like a Mercedes-Benz EQS, this is about a foot shorter overall. Same thing with the BMW i7. So just keep in mind, this is not as big as some of those competing vehicles. Now, looking at the rest of the profile here, definitely has an interesting design. What I don't like about this car when I look at it from this angle is kind of this really big body line here where it's a huge gap. In terms of build quality and whatnot, I am noticing this model here has a couple of uneven panel gaps and whatnot. This is a very kind of early pre-production vehicle, I think. But again, Lucid is a very new brand, and it's going to take them some time to, of course, get the build quality right. But overall, it is relatively impressive for what I'm seeing so far. Now, looking at the rear of the vehicle, very interesting design. This car gets a lot of attention everywhere because everybody wonders what the hell is this car. Nobody's heard of Lucid, at least if you're a non-car person, you've never heard of it. If you're a car person, you're gonna know what this brand is. You can see it's got a sequential LED turn signal at the back. It's kind of got this really interesting light bar that goes across the entire rear of the vehicle. It has a really cool light signature at night. Down here, you can see there's the air badge where it also says Grand Touring. Again, if you guys go for a different trim, it'll show a different badge at the back. And then for those of you who are wondering, this is actually a traditional sedan. So that's something that the Model S and the EQS have an advantage over. However, check this out, guys. When I open this, unlike most sedans, you can see the opening of the trunk is huge. It goes across the entire width of the vehicle. And look at that. When I open up the trunk, there's another LED down there for the turn signal and the brake light, which is, I guess, for pedestrian laws. But this cargo area here measures 22 cubic feet. So there's a total of 32 cubic feet of total storage space in this car when you add the front trunk and the rear trunk of this vehicle. There is, again, a 60/40 pass-through and a center pass-through as well, which is nice. Your mobile charger is located right here. You can see it fits in its own little cubby here in this little bag, which is really nice. I like how Lucid did that. There's also another storage cubby to the side here, although it's not quite as deep as the one on the driver's side. Then if you lift this up, you can see another very deep storage well here, which is very nice. There's even more storage under there. And then I mentioned earlier, those seats fold down in a 60/40 manner. So even though it's not quite as big as something like a hatchback in the Model S or the EQS, there is still a ton of space, cargo space, in the Lucid Air, despite being a conventional trunk. So now let's move on to the interior of the 2023 Lucid Air. Before we get inside, however, I want to show you guys the key fob. You can see here is the key fob for the vehicle. It is very much almost like a Tesla or a Porsche, where it has this interesting shape to it. There's no actual buttons on the fob. Instead, it just works as a transmitter, and the doors lock and unlock depending on my proximity to the vehicle. There are times where I notice that the car will frantically lock and unlock the car if I stand too close. But hey, it's something that you have to just keep in mind. The key is also supplemented by a key card, where you can also use this key card to get into the vehicle or lock the vehicle. And you should be able to use your smartphone as a key as well, but I don't have access to that because that requires access to the Lucid app. Now, as I approach the vehicle, you notice the door handles do pop out. As I walk away, they will retract in to give a flush body, and the mirrors will also fold in electrically. But it's kind of like a little pressure pad. It's an electronic release, so you just kind of pull on this slightly and the door will open for you. Now, my Tester, as you guys look at the interior, has the Santa Cruz interior option. You can see it has kind of a two-tone layout, and I frantically get super annoyed because every time I open the door, the music comes on, and it comes on very loudly. I'm sure you can change that in the settings, but it does that every time. But you can see here, there are a couple of things I'm noticing. There's light floors in this car, and you can see the light mats. This press car has 3,700 miles on it. They look disgusting after that many times that journalists have gotten in and out. So my recommendation, get some all-weather mats, because that just looks terrible. I do love how you have kind of like a navy dark color for the front seats, but I'll show you guys the rear seats later on. It's actually a different color. You have some contrasting copper piping. These seats adjust in like 20 plus different ways. They are heated, ventilated, and they're massaging. The massage function works really well. I don't believe you can get massaging seats still in a Tesla Model S, but you can in the Mercedes and the BMW competitors. You can see the door panel has beautiful materials. You have real leather along the upper portion, suede Alcantara, beautiful American walnut wood trim with a matte finish, and then this really cool kind of fabric material that reminds me a lot of Volvo, very Swedish in its design. The door handle, you can see you actually pull this right here to open the door. Window controls also feel pretty high quality and tactile with metal switches, and you can see leather along the entire lower portion of the door, along with plush carpeting. It smells really nice in here as well, so I'm really liking how Lucid has done the interior of this particular Air. Now, getting inside, it does have you have to duck your head, because the first thing I'm noticing right away is how thick this darn pillar is. It's very thick, and you can actually lose a car in your blind spot for this area. So I think that this is an area where I really would like Lucid to adjust the pillars here. Now, I suspect this is very thick because of the roof. You can see the roof is completely glass. It's kind of like the Tesla Model X, where it has a glass panel that goes all the way over your head, which looks very cool. No automatic closing doors, but you do have soft close doors. But when I get in and shut the door has a somewhat solid sounding thunk, not as nice as what I've heard from some competing vehicles. But you can see it sounds a little tinny and hollow there. But if you're too lazy to close it all the way, you can just kind of click it, and that will soft close the door for you. Now, looking at this interior, I applaud Lucid for not just copying Tesla's interior layout with the big center screen that sticks up like a tablet. Instead, they wanted to go with a more organic look to it, and I really appreciate that because it looks really futuristic. I love this floating 34-inch 5K resolution display here, which is technically comprised of 3 screens here and then a 4th screen down here. So there's a total of 3 touch screens. Which looks great. I also love how this panel here is touch sensitive. It reminds me a lot of Cadillac with the Escalade, but this panel here is a little bit larger. You can see a little bit better what you want to access, such as the headlights, the rear or front defrost. You can also open and close the charge port, open the front, which is power operated, and then the door lock switch is over here on the screen instead of being down here. I definitely had trouble finding that a couple times. The steering wheel looks really interesting. For a 2-spoke design, again, it's got some pretty futuristic controls. This is for your Dream Drive, this is for your volume, this is audio, and this is for, again, your Dream Drive. The steering wheel itself almost reminds me of a Lincoln Town Car, the shape of it. However, obviously it's different, but it kind of gives me Lincoln vibes, especially with the 2-spoke design. It's got a fat rim down here, but it does feel pretty nice. The steering wheel itself is power, but you have to adjust it from the screen right here. So you can see I can adjust it up and down, forward and back, and I can save that. It's all on the screen. Same thing with the mirror controls. They're over here if you want to adjust the mirrors, so that's something to keep in mind. Overall, though, the visibility from here is interesting. You kind of have this very long view of the dash. You can't really see over the hood, and then you have this big pillar, so it takes some getting used to. This is where some competing vehicles just have better visibility. This is going to be annoying if you're first getting into this car and you don't like vehicles that have poor visibility. Now, looking at the dash, you can see beautiful Alcantara along the dash with the contrast stitching. Leather, of course, everywhere along the dash. More of that American walnut trim, more of this fabric material, which reminds me of a Swedish car, which is lovely. And then you can see here, this touchscreen here, you basically can adjust your GPS, your audio controls. The embedded GPS also works very well. You can see it is pretty nice in terms of the graphics. The software, however, I noticed occasionally this would freeze. I have to say I was using this as my GPS because there's no CarPlay or Android Auto in this car. It's coming in a wireless over-the-air update, but right now you don't have CarPlay. So I was actually using the embedded GPS to drive down to Virginia, and I noticed when I decided not to listen to the GPS and took a different exit or different route, this literally froze for like 5 minutes before it finally recalculated and started giving me new routes. That would be a problem if you didn't have, for example, a backup GPS like my phone, which I did, where you're literally going to get lost waiting for this thing to recalculate. So the software behind it, unfortunately, is not great. That's something to keep in mind. For those of you looking at this car, the range, I am showing 439 miles on a full charge. It's almost full. It was showing around 455 at times. Most of the times it's been in the 50s, 60s. It's sometimes even warmer. When I took this down to Virginia, I did get around 400 miles on a full charge in the real world, which is pretty impressive. That's the most I've ever gotten in an electric vehicle. So I love that Lucid is really pushing the envelope, of course, with range. You can see this screen down here. I'm not sure how big this screen is, or this screen. Lucid only told us that this is a 34-inch screen. This kind of looks like a 15-inch tablet portrait style, which is pretty nice looking. The screen itself, you can actually slide this out of the way if you'd like, which reveals a massive cubby storage area here, which is nice. You have some aluminum trim, cup holders, and you also have this like area here where you can close this. Gives you a pretty sturdy tray with more of that beautiful wood. Your wireless phone charging pad is in here, although I will say that my smartphone doesn't fit in it terribly well. So you can see there's my phone. If I slam it in here into this, I almost have to push it in and force it. It's not charging, however, unless I take it out of the case. So that's something that Lucid needs to redesign as their wireless phone charging pad. There's also a USB-A and a USB-C connector down there for just charging your phone. Let's bring this screen back over here because I want to show you guys that. You can see it's a fingerprint magnet. This is after 3 days of using it. Where the screen just has a ton of fingerprints all over it. You can see adjusting your car stuff is basically by tapping the car icon. You can see there's 3 different drive modes: smooth, swift, and sprint. When you go to sprint mode, this is where it's going to literally ask you if you want to confirm, because this will unleash the full 819 horsepower and 885 pound-feet of torque, which we'll try out later on. When you go to openings here, this is how you open and close the charge port in the front and the rear trunk and the rear shades. You can also open the frunk via this control over here. So there's a couple of redundant controls. Go to the seats here. You can adjust all the different settings for the seats, which there is an adjustment over here. However, it's limited. So if you want to adjust everything, you have to go into the screen here. And you can also save the actual driver profiles when you want to save your memory. You can also adjust the passenger seat from here. And if you want to go to the massage, you can see there's 6 or 5 different types of massage, 3 different intensities. It works on 20-minute intervals, but if you start doing it too many times, the car will actually lock you out and make you rest because it thinks you're using the massage too much. The massage I felt worked very well. Going to charging, you can see it says even here energy limited due to cold batteries. So you can set the preconditioning, you can set a charge limit, and then there's also themes where you can change the color and theme of the screens and change the color of the ambient lighting. There's a little bit of ambient lighting in the door panels, in this little panel or this little area right here in the footwells. And stuff like that, which looks okay, but not as nice as something like from the Mercedes EQS or the BMW i7. Going to climate over here, you can see you can adjust your climate from over here. And then if you want to access the heated seats and ventilated seats and the heated steering wheel, you have to go down here into the screen, which I have to admit, when I was driving this vehicle, Adjusting the heated steering wheel and heated seat required me to literally look down here and take my eyes completely off the road, which is unsafe. I really think Lucid needs to redesign this and give us either an actual button or perhaps a control over here to adjust the heated steering wheel and heated seats. That is a little bit of annoyance. And then when I looked down here to adjust, the car literally would notice that I was looking down and would yell at me. So constantly I was fighting with the car at that stage. You can see going to settings here, you can also change a bunch of your different settings here. From your regen braking, there's a standard or a high. You can turn on and off the creep. And also there's like a stop, brake hold function. You can turn off the stability control there. Your dream drive, you can adjust the intervention in the distance, and you change the visual and audio there. You can also adjust the screens and displays over here, and then your audio settings. So this is fairly easy to use and fairly intuitive. You can see there's the backup camera for this car. You have basically a full 360 surround camera with automatic parallel parking and automatic rear cross traffic braking. You can also go to the rear view there. The camera quality and resolution looks fantastic. I love this as well. You can also kind of tap the different camera icons and you can kind of scroll around the vehicle and do like a perimeter scan, which I think, again, is very nice. This is very futuristic and very custom and very beautiful to look at. But you can see here, it's a little bit laggy. And there are times when I put the vehicle into reverse, it wouldn't actually put the car into drive, or it wouldn't actually turn the cameras on. Now, you notice it actually beeped because when I put my foot on the brake, that's how you turn the car on. There's no ignition or anything, no button to push. It's like a Tesla. Just get in with the key fob, push your foot on the brake, and the car knows you're ready to drive. The transmission selector is right here. I click this up like a Mercedes to go into reverse. You can see there's the backup camera and whatnot. Push it down to go to drive. Push this little button over here to go to park. You also have your wiper controls right here. Which in addition to controls right here where there's an automatic setting, an on-off completely, you can basically just do the washer fluid and the turn signal stalks here. There are a couple of dedicated buttons as well, like knobs here for the temperature and for your volume, which is nice. But overall, a lot of the controls are going to be buried into the screen, including if you guys want to access the glove box. So glove box, you can see, push that button, that opens it up. I noticed that this is damped and lined with felt. It's pretty deep, but there's no actual light in there. I think that's kind of a problem if you guys are actually, rummaging through there at night. I found the seats to be very comfortable and supportive, even on a long, 4-hour drive that I drove this vehicle on to test out the range. The massaging function works very well. And then you can see above me here, these don't open, but you can see they are very dark tinted. The sun is beating down on us now. I noticed on a warmer day, it was a little bit uncomfortable. And I also found that the sun visors are kind of annoyingly in the way. Like, I really kind of wish that there was a way that I could just have this continuous view all the time. You could just put it over here and that helps, but there are times where I noticed that the visibility wasn't great. The heat coming from there also kind of annoyed me. But overall, the interior is a very well first effort. The build quality is solid. I actually didn't hear very many squeaks and rattles at all while I was driving this car. It was mostly just around the software, which was giving me a few issues. But overall, it definitely has that luxury car feel that you expect from a car that's costing 6 figures. Moving to the rear seat, let's go ahead and talk about the space back here. Now, this car does offer a fairly good amount of legroom. Lucid says you get around 37.5 inches, which surprisingly is on the low end by the numbers, but actually sitting here or seeing it in person, it actually looks a lot more roomier than the numbers would suggest. You can see it does have these power retractable shades, which you can open and close via these little window controls, and you can also open up the window. Of course, there's full leather covering the actual door panel, the entire door panel, which is nice. And then, like I showed you earlier, unlike the front seats, which are black, these are more of like a white grayish color for the seats with a copper accent stitching and piping, which again is pretty cool how Lucid does this two-tone. I've never seen that before. Now, getting inside, you are going to have to duck your head because of this sloping roof. It's going to eat into the space for you taller folks. And then if I shut the door actually sounds a little bit more solid back here, which is interesting. To open the door, you actually pull this right here, and that opens the door for you. It also still has a soft close function, and also works pretty nice. You can see once I get back here, there's a ton of space back here. At 5'7", I can stretch my legs up pretty well. I can cross my legs nicely. You do have 2 storage cubbies in each of the front seats. You have Alcantara and leather stitching covering the entire interior, even over the grab handle here. There's LED lighting, and you can see back here, you also get this really nice view. This is a very dark tinted pano glass roof, which for those of you who are sad that Lucid doesn't offer an actual covering, it is very dark, and I noticed it didn't really bother me in bright sunlight, but you'll have to try it out for yourself, make sure you're okay with it. Back here you can see there are 3-level heated seats, and then you can also open and close the rear sunshade, which you can see is a touch of a button that opens and closes that, along with the power opening and closing shades that you can do from the window. That's really the only thing you can do from that screen, surprisingly. You do have rear seat vents here, and then you also have rear seat vents over here. And then if you open this up, you can see nice little storage cubby over there. And I love how there's a flat load floor, or flat floor here. So if you need to put 3 people across, you can. I showed you guys that what this looked like with the armrest down. This is with it up, so you can actually fit 3 people across. Fold this down, you can see there's a little bit of storage in here, and then there's also 2 cup holders. I believe Lucid offers like a upgraded rear seat package, which will allow you to recline these seats back, and maybe they'll even throw in a cooled seat function. I'm not entirely sure. But I do love the soft leather and the fact that these are heated, and you'll have more legroom in the back here versus something like the Mercedes-Benz EQS. And it feels pretty much the same as what you get in the Tesla Model S. So here we are in a brand new electric vehicle company, Lucid. I have been waiting quite some time to finally get behind the wheel of the Lucid Air, which is the brand's only vehicle. This car was built, of course, to take on the Tesla Model S, and it is the most aerodynamic and longest range production electric vehicle that is currently produced right now. So again, we are in the Air Grand Touring non-performance, which means up to 469 miles of range on a full charge, 819 horsepower, 885 foot-pounds of torque, 113 kilowatt-hour battery pack. We're starting off this review with about a 95% state of charge, and I'm very excited because I want to see what this car can do 0 to 60 wise. So to do that, you put the car into sprint mode. Once you go into sprint mode, you basically just brake torque the vehicle, or you brake torque it, left foot on your brake, until it shows a bear icon kind of in the screen over here. So basically, foot hard on the brake, it's in sprint mode, it shows the bear launch mode activated. Oh, Jesus! Whoa! Wow, this isn't even the performance edition, and I just got 0 to 60 in 3.05 seconds. Wow, so apparently the performance edition adds another 230 horsepower, and it'll probably shave around a half a second off the 0 to 60 time, but 3.05 makes this one of the quickest production EVs I've ever tested. The Audi RS e-tron GT is a smidge quicker, 0.1 seconds quicker than this car. But wow, does it really take your breath away? It gives you that tunnel vision. It makes you just kind of it gives you that adrenaline rush that you're looking for in EV. But let's try that again, shall we? Just because we can. Brake. Really easy to engage. Launch control. No wheel spin. This thing just keeps pulling. It literally feels like it keeps pulling harder and harder as you go past 60 miles an hour, which is not what usually EVs do. EVs usually feel like they taper off above 60. This feels like it keeps wanting to pull harder. And on that run, we got 3.09 seconds. So I think we could get a slightly faster time, because in my first run on the level surface, I felt a little bit of wheel spin, versus on that run where it's uphill, there was no wheel spin. So I'm gonna see if I can break into the 2-second range, but holy moly, this car is freaking fast. Oh God, that is so unbelievably quick. I cannot believe how fast this car is. I mean, it competes, remember, with cars like the Tesla Model S. I mean, that car will do 0 to 60 in 3 seconds flat for even the base version. I haven't even driven the new Model S with the Plaid powertrain, let alone the regular one, but this initially, just in my first moments of getting in this car, it feels like that upscale premium luxury EV that you expect from like something like the Mercedes EQS, the BMW i7, the Tesla Model S. I mean, I can only, compare this to a Model S based on the pre-refresh model that I've driven a few times, not the updated model, but for a car that weighs 5,000 pounds, 5,200 pounds, this thing really hides its weight incredibly well. It has a very balanced feel. It's got dual electric motors front and rear. It's got that battery pack that lines the floor. The steering also feels pretty good in this car. I'm actually really impressed. And I also really like the seats. They adjust in like 21 different ways. I'm sitting here getting a massage. They're heated and cooled. And the leather just feels really upscale. This is real Napa leather, which I very much appreciate the fact that they're using real leather. Oh, God, this car is unbelievably fast. And what's crazy is Lucid makes an even faster version than the Grand Touring Performance. The Sapphire is coming out later this year, and that is going to beat the Model S Plaid in every performance means, and it also is going to cost $250,000. That has 1,200 horsepower. Would love the opportunity, Lucid, if you're watching, to drive that vehicle, but my God, what an impressive car. Let's go ahead and see what we can get on this stretch. This is also level road. Oh my God, that feels so fast. Oh, Jesus, okay. 3.05, so sadly, I'm not gonna be able to break into the 2-second range, but oh my God, this thing is just stupid. It is just stupid quick. I am shocked. I am genuinely shocked. This thing feels just as fast, if not faster, than the Audi RS e-tron GT. It feels quicker than a Taycan GTS. Now, I haven't driven the Taycan Turbo S, but again, this car... I also love the noise it makes. It makes a really nice electric motor whine, a whirring noise that is very natural. It doesn't sound like, it's not a fake noise, it's just the natural sound of the motors whirring up as you put your foot down. Oh God, make sure you hold on to the wheel if you put your foot down in this thing. It's so fast. Now, most of you are probably gonna drive this vehicle in the smooth or the swift mode. I've been in the sprint mode the whole time. That unleashes the full 819 horsepower. In these modes, it limits the power to 536 horsepower, which is still bloody fast, unbelievably quick, and around 645 foot-pounds of torque. This is gonna be enough speed for most people. And in day-to-day driving, it's going to give you that power and effortless feel that you want, with the ability to smoke most supercars off the line anyways. The one-pedal drive feature in this car offers 2 modes. When you go to basically the settings here on the screen, which you go there and go to drive settings, you can go between a standard and a high mode. In standard mode, this is probably the smoother way to drive this car. In high, it gives you the full one-pedal effect, where if I lift off my foot, it literally starts to slow down. Most of you actually might like it in standard. I actually like it in either mode, depending on if I'm in traffic. If I'm in rush hour traffic, I prefer to be in the high mode, but it does really well. It just kind of being a smooth luxury car when you want it to be, and giving you that one-pedal drive effect where it's a little more jerky if you also want to go with that. The Dream Drive Pro that this car has, or Dream Drive, it's not the Dream Drive Pro, is basically equivalent to Tesla's enhanced autopilot. It works pretty well. It keeps you in the lane very nicely. It allows for some hands-free driving. It has a camera that watches my face, that literally yells at me every time I'm distracted and take my eyes off the road. There is a Pro version that's similar to Tesla's full self-driving capability for an extra $10,000. My tester doesn't have it. It's not quite readily available yet anyways. But I like how Lucid makes it standard equipment. That is a $6,000 extra charge with a Tesla. So that's something to keep in mind. That's probably why the Lucid ends up costing a little bit more. There's a little bit more standard equipment in this car. When I signal right or left, there's actually a camera that shows what's in your blind spot. That's very similar to what Hyundai and Kia does and Genesis. So if I signal left, it shows it on the other side, which is pretty cool. I like that feature. I love the futuristic feel of this car. It has a really good ride quality as well. My tester has the 21-inch wheels on these adaptive dampers. Surprisingly, not an air suspension, I don't believe, but from what I read, it's an adaptive suspension. It has a really good ride quality in either mode. The 21-inch wheels, you know, they're big wheels and tires, but it still soaks up the bumps. It's quiet in here. I haven't heard a single creak or rattle in my week's worth of testing, which is insane. And this is where we talk about the range as well, because this car on a full charge shows 480 miles. 480 miles on a full charge is the most I've ever seen. This is the longest range EV currently in production. And I've been fortunate in my few days of testing that I had with this vehicle. It's been warmer in the 50s, 60-degree temps in February, which is very rare in this area. But I was actually getting around 420-ish miles on a full charge in real-world testing. That is the best that I've ever gotten in an EV, and it really shows me that 400-mile-plus range EVs are here. I mean, Tesla technically did it with the Model S. The max you can do is 405. In colder-ish climate, this car was getting 420. I wouldn't be surprised to see this car do 450 plus in even nicer 70, 80 degree weather. So that's something I'm really excited about. Lucid should be very proud of the fact that this thing has incredible range, incredible performance. It feels really well made. The software in here, I will say, it feels like a little half-baked. I'm sad that there's no Apple CarPlay in this vehicle or Android Auto, but Lucid keeps telling us it's coming in the over-the-air update. My tester still, unfortunately, doesn't have it. But what shocks me is the fact that this is a brand new company. And it feels like they've been doing EVs for a while, aside from the software issues that are fixable through updates. It really shows that Lucid has the right team, the right engineering team. But remember, the guy who is in charge of Lucid was the vice president and chief designer of the Model S, so that doesn't surprise me one bit. But overall, for a new electric vehicle brand, a luxury electric vehicle brand, Lucid really gets some bonus points for its range, its performance, the style, and something that is always a personal thing. I actually do think the styling on this car is growing on me, but really what shocks me is the range. I love the fact that we now have a long-range vehicle that can realistically do over 400 miles on a full charge. So after spending the last 3 days with the 2023 Lucid Air, I must admit, I had some pretty high expectations for this car. I mean, when you ask for a 6-figure price tag and you have a vehicle like the Tesla Model S in your crosshairs, you expect and you demand a lot of things. And I have to say, for their first effort, Lucid has done a phenomenal job with the Air. It really truly excels as a luxury sedan. The build quality of this vehicle is quite good, considering the fact that the company has never built an actual production car until now. And it's one of the most comfortable and smoothest riding vehicles that I've driven, despite the fact that this car doesn't actually have an air suspension. Instead, we just have adaptive dampers. The 0 to 60 time of 3 seconds is unbelievably quick. Now, keep in mind, this model here is designed to compete head-on with the regular Tesla Model S long range. Lucid does offer slower and quicker versions, although the slower versions are going to be a little bit more delayed. And in terms of the styling, this thing got attention everywhere. Everywhere people wanted to know what it was. Of course, I also live in an area where you're not going to see a vehicle like this more often. Unlike if you guys live in, for example, LA, you're probably going to see this vehicle a lot more. But really, in terms of sales, Lucid says they've managed to deliver around 4,600 of these vehicles in 2022. They actually produced a little over 7,000, but they delivered a little under 5,000. That did fall short of the company's targets, and they are working again to ramp up production, but they are dealing, of course, with supply chain issues like every other manufacturer. And if you guys are looking to purchase this vehicle, the Lucid Air is a lot more expensive than other competing vehicles like the Tesla Model S. In fact, Tesla, when they dropped their prices significantly earlier this year, it really started to affect other brands, and other brands have also dropped their prices in comparison. Now, you can get into the cheapest Lucid Air for around $87,000. However, that model, the Pure, is not being delivered just yet. And if you go onto Lucid's configurator on their website and you try to build an Air Pure, they're going to be around $108,000 because you cannot get the rear drive model yet, and there are certain options that Lucid is kind of forcing you to buy at this moment. So at that point, you might as well just go to the Lucid Air Touring, which starts at around $107,000. When you guys go for the base, Pure, and the Touring versions, you're going to have to pay extra for like this color, which is $1,000, and the glass roof, which is around $4,500. The Grand Touring essentially throws that in for you, including those features and such as upgraded features like the upgraded leather that my tester has. My tester here, the Grand Touring, starts at around $138,000, which is, again, a lot of money. You could get a Tesla Model S Plaid and save a little money, and the Plaid is significantly quicker. It doesn't go as far on a full charge, and I'd also argue that the Lucid Air has a bigger back seat, and it also feels a little bit more luxurious, although I haven't spent time in the current Model S, the one that got a significant refresh with an all-new interior. My tester with the color upcharge costs $140,000. It is missing the Dream Drive Pro, which is their almost Tesla-like full self-driving capability, which is $10,000 extra. The Surreal Pro audio is also another $4,000 extra. My tester doesn't have it. It has the standard audio system. And after spending the last couple of days with the Lucid Air, I did notice that this car did remind me a couple times that it is built by a new manufacturer, because there were a couple of inconsistencies that I noticed in terms of the software. The screen a couple times bugged out and it froze on me. When I tried to turn on the backup camera, it wouldn't turn on. When I tried to change the drive mode, there was a time where the screen froze. When I was trying to input a navigation or a destination to the navigation, there were times where the screen was laggy. So in terms of the software, that's where Tesla got it right, and Lucid still has a couple of, things to work on. And in terms of drivability, I also noticed that the regenerative braking sometimes after a few days was a little bit buggy. It wasn't very consistent. When I would have it on high, it wouldn't actually engage. It would kind of turn off the regen at times, and also the brake pedal feel and the throttle sensitivity needs a little bit of fine tuning, I think. But those are all, of course, areas where Lucid is looking. So if you guys own this vehicle, I'm sure that Lucid is listening very directly to their customer input, customer feedback, and they're going to make improvements, especially in the software as time goes on. But with all that said, this car is available now. They are delivering the Touring and the Grand Touring. The Pure and the Sapphire will be available at a later date. And unfortunately, this car does not qualify for the $7,500 federal tax credit because it is too expensive. Although on the certain trims like the Pure and the Touring, and I believe the Grand Touring, Lucid is offering a $7,500 credit for those of you who do take delivery of these. So they'll basically just lop that off the price when you take delivery. So you still can kind of take advantage of that, even though it's not something you can claim on your taxes. But hey, I'm glad to see that Lucid is making some adjustments, and they are, again, doing a wonderful first effort despite some of the few teething problems that I'm noticing after my 3 days of spending with this car. But with all that said, hope you guys have enjoyed my full overview on the 2023 Lucid Air Grand Touring. If you're also looking to see the latest cars I'm testing, be sure to follow me on Instagram at redline_reviews, like us on Facebook, and as always, guys, please keep subscribing to the Redline Reviews YouTube channel for all the latest reviews. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you all in the next video.